I mean, I also find it weird sometimes when I see people who are vegans or whatever, and they want to focus on their diet, but they still give their children the other stuff, the standard stuff, the
Yeah.
sugars, and which doesn't make any sense because it's not just about one person. It's about changing a habit of eating, changing a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So that is very interesting. So you would say anytime is good for changing your diet, for transitioning. Also now when there's this virus going around, now is maybe the perfect time
Oh yeah.
to make the change, right?
Yeah, definitely. This is the time, wake up and and really, do get into your studies, get into cleansing, because yeah, especially if you're, and a lot of folks' money situation is rough, and but what you can get enough to. I mean, you're going to get food somehow, and and that decision is critical. And so, some people are going in the direction of, getting depressed and scared. And so now they're eating really poorly and there's no
Mm,
exercise and that kind of stuff. And so this is really compromising a lot of people's health just based on that's going down that type of road. But if you are awake enough and willing to just let the time serve you, let this time, if you're sitting around at home or outside, make sure you're getting outside, get your fresh air and stuff, get some exercise in. But if you're not going to work, all that kind of, take this time, study, take the time to, try the Mucusless diet healing system, read the books, go through all that information, put together the menu plan for yourself. And I got some things on that, a free PDF document that's helps you learn how to put your own menu plans together. But do that, and then and doing the enemas if you're brave. If you're ready to go down that road, start getting this stuff out of your system. That this is the perfect time.
yeah.
Definitely time to do that.
One more question. Is there any form of mucus that is natural, like that the body produces mucus, as they say, the mucous membrane in the body? Like, is mucus just bad and mucus, or is there mucus that is also useful that prevents the body from, for example, catching a virus?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about a little earlier, where these are two totally different types of mucus that
Okay.
are not related, in the sense that there's a relationship to them that's down the road, but initially, and it's one of those things where you could, if somebody was to rename it, like it wouldn't even be something confusing if, instead of calling the mucus that is secreted naturally from the body, from the mucous membrane or the mucosa of the body, if that was named something else versus the mucus that degrades, that's the remains of this slimy residue from
Mm,
these foods, then I think there'd be a lot more understanding on that point. And
yeah.
so the relationship that can happen is, so you say, when you ask someone, most people know that milk or dairy produces mucus, and they'll say, yeah, well, that's mucus forming. One of the reasons is that's one of the mucus forming foods that will cause the mucosa, often for a lot of people, cause the mucosa to secrete mucus, and so you'd be blowing your nose and coughing up phlegm. But also that residue in your gut, and some people say, well, there's digestive fluids and that takes care of all these foods, and we're saying no, it doesn't. If you look at some I got a colonoscopy video that I reviewed where not myself, but it was like something that was out there, and they evaluate the colons of different people that actually had like different diseases, and you can see this nasty leftover residue. There's a difference between somebody that was eating fruits and vegetables that had a clear colon versus all this like little pockets in the pockets of the intestine, these little black slime deposits yes, that's a mixture of some of the mucosa of the body, but it's uneliminated, undigested food substance. And so, yes, there's a combination of that. But if you remove and get rid of the uneliminated, unnatural food substance, then yeah, that there's a natural mucosa fluid. You know, I used to call it, or I thought about renaming it, lymphatic fluid. You know,
Yes.
lymphatic secretions. You know, there's because that, and I won't get into sort of the whole lymphatic system at the moment, but that's just something if people want to really study and understand some of these things. I mean, you have two major forms of liquid in the body, blood and lymph fluid. And so a lot of what we're talking about is, you know, there's nothing to pump the lymph in the body. You know, with the blood, we have the lungs. With the lymph fluid, there's nothing pumping it. And so when it gets stagnant and is not moving like it should, when you mucus free foods and the, you know, fruits and green leafy vegetables and what some people call alkaline foods or whatever terminology you use, your lymphatic system is going to move and filter properly and much better than, you know, when you're eating a lot of these really terrible foods. You know, there's another angle to analyze these things is from the angle of acid forming. All mucus forming foods have the potential to ultimately be acid forming in the body because
Yes.
you have this uneliminated food that is slimy and that's sitting in there. Eventually, that if it goes uneliminated for too long, it's going to get more and more acidic, and ultimately the body, you know, is trying to buffer itself from that acid waste, and then you start to have inflammation in wherever that's at, you know, in the body, and you start to get inflammation, whether it be on a particular organ or in some place on the body. And so that's another way, you know, we one way to think about this. We have multiple ways to look at the same phenomenon.
Yes.
And you'll hear a lot of people that sort of really really kind of are attracted to one form of discussion, usually based on whoever they study and who they follow. And
Yeah.
so some people, they'll be real into saying like the alkaline concept. There's alkaline foods, you know, foods that are not acid forming. There's you know, I don't use that terminology too often because it's along a mucus diet type of path that can be deceiving, and it's kind of, it's, to me, it's unnecessarily complicated because there are people who say, well, there's foods like there's certain things that cause like lemons or limes, well, those are acid forming, and it's like, no, it's not, it's different. You know, they become alkaline in the body.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you can explain things in those terms, but I find it better and easier to kind of, and more visceral to say, look, we're trying to get away from mucus forming stuff that
Yes.
turns into this slime, and even outside of the body, you can imagine what turns into slime, you know, and also, you
Yeah.
know, poor food combinations also does that. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think it's more important to not divide the people more who are all on a path of a healthy lifestyle,
Yeah.
but just to really try and unify and see that we all have the same idea, the same goal to be healthy and to be mucus free, and to make sure that we're, you know, at least plant based and conscious of what we're putting into our bodies.